Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you perfect. Can you hear me?
I can indeed. Good to see you. Thank you for spending the time with me today.
Well, uh, I rarely say no.
I appreciate that about you.
Yeah,
So I
you
think
got
we're
all the
waiting
bad.
on.
When you have all the bad qualities I have, you have to have a couple of good ones.
I have a couple of good ones. What other bad qualities are we dealing with here? I'm not sure I believe that.
Hmm.
Did you have any luck out hunting today?
We had cold barrels.
What does that mean?
That means there were no animals harmed in the pursuit of our morning.
Oh, okay.
No shots.
No shot. Cold barrels. I see. I see.
Hmm.
Yeah. Okay. How often do you get out?
Every Wednesday morning, sometimes Sunday, but I generally work Saturdays so I can take Wednesday mornings off.
Well, that's nice. That's a really good routine and habit to be in on Wednesdays.
Well, there's just a lot less pressure, a lot fewer people out
Absolutely.
to spend the
I don't.
morning at sub freezing in a hole in the ground.
Your favorite way to spend the day, huh?
Well, it's a little better with loud noises, but I
It's true.
cook a lot. I I
When you're out.
no when with what we harvest. I'm a
Oh,
wildlife cook, so I
that's
smoke
right.
ducks and I do curry goose and I do a lot of things where people say my grandfather used to cook this and it never tasted like this. And it's because
That's nice.
their grandfather tried to make it like chicken, and it ain't.
It ain't. It's different.
Yeah.
That sounds good. What's one of your favorite things that you make?
Um, I have a Korean goose, a curry goose. Those are both popular. Do one where I get a sweet pickle and roll goose and bacon. That's pretty good, and teriyaki.
Hmm.
I smoke maple. I use have maple smoked duck where I keep lathering them, and then the maple smokes as well, and that's a crowd pleaser.
It sounds amazing. I've been
So
I don't cook duck as much, but I do like to go get duck tallow from the butcher and do a lot of cooking with the duck tallow.
yeah.
Um, we did I know you don't drink anymore, but we did some duck fat washed whiskeys for Thanksgiving a couple of weeks ago so that we could make some
Mhm.
different like old fashions with duck fat washed whiskeys. And those
Oh
came
yeah,
out pretty
you
good.
can smoke them. I liked it. It was just inconsistent with five
But I
days a week.
totally, totally.
And
Thomas, I think you hopped in and joined.
I'm sorry.
I was saying hi to Thomas. So we're having people that are starting to come trickle in, and we
Okay.
should get started here in about 2 minutes.
Do you work for House Call Pro? Do you 1099 for House Call Pro? I don't know.
Yeah, it's a good question. I originally started in the coaching program, so I was contracting for House Call
I
Pro
knew that.
years ago, but I've been in a team role with House Call as a senior director for the last couple of years.
Got it. That's what I thought.
Yeah, so I support some of our business solutions divisions, specifically related to the accounting services and products. So, accounting solutions, tax solutions. Um, I enjoy that I get to do a lot of cross-functional work with our product and engineering teams on like more of our
Right.
AI products as they relate to accounting and things like that.
Yeah, I teach a lot of that.
Yeah,
A
so I
lot
love
of
that
how to build agents and how to teach the agent and then how to write blogs and then how to set them up for SEO and
that's such an interesting high impact area of opportunity for businesses right now, right?
well, and I think everybody says write me a song and then they think it's terrible and then you say, well, if you looked at the words of Hotel California, it wouldn't exactly make sense either. But that's not really what it's for. And I describe to everybody it's the smartest MIT graduate ever who's never left a cubicle. And so
Mhm.
if you school it up, it's amazing, but it lies.
Yeah,
My prompts and my personalization, over half of it is about not lying.
it's about telling, making sure it's not hallucinating.
Well, it's really interesting. Um, I have an adversarial relationship at times where in the Southern term, I bless it out, which cuss it out.
Which
But
are you using? Are you using any platforms in particular? I'll ask this one last question and then we'll jump into the
mhm.
topic for today.
I use four platforms:
Hmm. Which ones?
Grok paid, GPT paid, Notebook LM, Gamma paid.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's a good combination. Well, cool.
Well, I'm going to switch over to Gemini.
Yeah, now that it's high performing now in the last couple of weeks with it outperforming on a whole bunch of benchmarks with that last update.
Well, and I have a friend who's a senior developer for him, and I had him sit down and look at my products. He said, "Dude, you're you're the 1% club," because I use it for coding and
All
not
kinds of things.
computer coding, but for coding of transcripts and focus groups. And
So cool. Well, I'm excited to get to dive back into that with you soon, Eddie. Okay, for today's topic, we'll go ahead and dive in. Shayna might be hopping in and joining us, but I think that she might have gotten pulled into something else. So we'll go ahead and kick it off. So very, very excited for today's episode, which is all about the topic of strategic gifting. What we're really focusing on today are talking about those small, thoughtful gestures that disproportionately create so much loyalty, trust, and most importantly, referrals for our marketing and for our leads. One of the things, Eddie, one of the reasons I was excited to pull you in is because you and I had been talking about this perspective about in a digital age, right, where everyone is leaning into technology and AI and digital ads getting noisier and more expensive. It's all of these areas in business where we can lean into the human touches that are becoming some of the most profitable moves that contractors and local service businesses can make. So let me give you a quick intro and then let's dive into the discussion. For those of you guys that are joining, I'm very excited to have Eddy Wittry join as my guest co-host for today. Eddie is a coach for House Call Pro. He has an incredible background in strategy, franchising, and operations. He was a former chief marketing officer for Ace Hardware's Handyman franchise, and he's a former president of a decorative concrete company. So he's a wealth of knowledge to share with us today. And throughout his career, he's been tasked with driving revenue and has real on the ground experience in building no or low cost leads in the trade segment. So thanks for spending the time with us today, Eddie.
oh, I was honored to be asked to help.
Okay. So on the topic of strategic gifting, Eddie, start us off. You and I had some chances to riff on this. What comes to your mind with this topic and with this theme, and like why is it such a good idea for us to spend some time elaborating on it with this audience?
You bet. People are used to paying for digital for leads, and this falls under a category that I call the ground game. And we'll get into it, but I think it's first to understand the homeowner or the business owner, and they really approach the trades and people doing work with them often misbehaving, being angry, being really hard to deal with, and it's because they're in a state of fear and they don't really know anything about their work that they're paying thousands for. And so that state of ignorance, which is not being stupid, but it's a state of not knowing, causes them to really search for something that they can believe in. And so it's these consistent promises that we make in service paths, what time we're going to show, who's going to be there, we show on time, we told them what was going to happen, we make it happen, we go all the way. And we have so many things we do to build the relationship so that we can actually do the work. And very few homeowners, very few business owners can evaluate the work and say, gosh, that was great. I mean, they just don't have that skill. And so it's creating these moments of unexpected delight. And when we do that and we make that owner, whether it's a home or business owner, feel in control, we really build the most important thing of all, which is relationship.
I love that. So that was one of the themes that I heard when we were talking through this before, which is, these moments of delight, they're not just about being nice. It's not that simple.
Right.
It's really about this relationship building piece and helping your prospective clients and then your happy raving fan clients and your referral
Right.
partners. It's really about helping them, lower their emotional guard that they're bringing into any kind of purchasing relationship so that they feel safe with you and excited to do business together.
Yeah, absolutely. Because trust is built on a series of consistent behaviors. A lot of people think that they can do ads to build trust or slogans or websites, and trust really comes out of consistent behaviors. If it's consistently what we promised, then they move sort of into comfort, and then from comfort they can move into trust. And there's a lot of ways also formally to build customer facing delight, right? There's like three things that I'll sort of top line that are ones that we generate and that we can cause. And there's an old saying that when you're small, do the things the big guys could never do, and when you're big, do the things the small guys can't do. Right? That kind of makes sense. And early in a business, when it's sub 1 million in revenue, and even after that, but this notion of every job doing a handwritten thank you note. You've got people who answer the phone; they're not 100% utilized. Handwritten thank you notes are really shock people. When something is written by hand, it gets read. And so there's a lot to be said for that. And another way to build these moments of delight is for we did list of work for some people yesterday. A quick call to them for a 24-hour check-in when you just say, "Hey, I just wanted to check and see how everything went yesterday." It's a holy shit moment for them. They just can't believe that somebody's calling them who's not connected to try to sell them something or make money from something. And 99% of the time, it's a call where they say, "Gosh, Tom was fantastic. He showed on time. He really the area was cleaner than when he got here. Was really impressed." And this opportunity for an owner to say, Tom has been with us for years and he's a great guy. He's one of our favorites. I'm so glad you experienced that. But in that 1% where somebody felt bullied or is stewing on it, I've got this opportunity to fix it before it turns into a 1-star review. Used to be when somebody was mad, they'd tell a couple of people. Now they tell the world, right? And so there's a real specific way to go through it. And you have a good call, things are going well. This whole thing of saying, "Mrs. Jones, thank you so much for sharing your experience. May I ask you for your help?" Really asking for help is key in this. We're a local business. It depends on our ratings. If we've earned your respect, we'd love for you to give us a rating. That's 99% of the calls. And so your velocity, 5-star ratings, which affects your authority and answer and reviews in under 24 hours, it really skyrockets. But you really can check up on the tech, you can check up on the work, you can really make 5-star reviews go. And this is another part of the ground game. It's this part where people think there's not a return on it. But when you're paying $80 for a lead and you're closing a third of them, right? It's a $240 job. And given your margins, you start to see that pay-per-click advertising is a lot like a crack habit. It usually doesn't end well. And so really getting to a ground game and really getting to referrals is a big thing. And then the very last thing is the third one is for every trade, there is a shoulder gift. Okay.
Mm.
And somebody just wrote in and said many customers are not sophisticated to judge the work. I don't know who said that, but that's right. And that's the whole
Said it,
thing. That
Eddie. You said it a minute ago. Thomas is
oh,
quoting
okay.
you.
See. Oh, okay. Thank you. Well, it's funny because the technical part they just don't know, but they know how the job felt. They know how, and I would tell you these moments of truth when it's a series that I'm working on with Alex on the service path. Is there's just three key things that you can do at each time, and you can do a lot of things wrong. You can screw up. You can forget to turn the hot water back on after you put in the water heater and they forgive you. So there's a lot of reasons. But my third one, real quick, and I don't want to run too long,
Oh,
is
good.
there's always things that associate with your trade that you can give as a gift that have your name on it. Okay, so if you think about it, an education for a plumber at the end of a job, having hang tags on different things, telling what they are, and this is where you shut the gas off, this is where you shut the water off. Really a low cost thing. And in man cave garages we used to do, we used to give a squeegee. We paid $7 for them through Alibaba, and they had our name and number on them. So when somebody said, "Who did your garage?" It's really fantastic. Then they can say, right? And in the handyman space, these to-do lists with a magnet that sticks to the fridge. I think a lot of people underestimate how leaving your name in a role that adds value to the customer in the home, that starts to build that surprise. Free branded filters in the HVAC space. Dropping it, Miss Jones, you got to change this filter. Here's three from us as a gift. They cost us, for us, they cost us a couple of bucks, but there are ways that we can build a relationship. And these little moments of effort carry equals trust, and trust is everything.
Yeah, I am. Those are great examples. And so I think just to kind of read that back to you and what I'm hearing and what we want to cover with the group today is just this idea of kind of like hit them where they ain't, right? In a space where everyone is digital and everyone's leaning into the online and the ads, it's really hard to stand out. And to your note, it's incredibly difficult to convey trust or start to build trust through that path. So whether you connect with a prospective client or a lead through one of those paths or through something else, it's really important to emphasize all of these human relationship components in your service path. So I love the examples that you brought up around those small things that are so human that people really value them because they stand out now in such a digitally oriented age. So taking the time to handwrite things, taking the time to have that little follow-up call the next day that's just open-ended and a conversation. And then the third one, which is the one I really was excited to go deep on today because it's that time of year where we're thinking about gifting, is that
Mhm.
gifting is just one of these channels or one of these pillars that is really unique and overlooked a lot in the home service space and is really creating this incredible moment of delight, this really surprising delight that, who are the people in your life that you give gifts to or that you receive gifts from? Eddie, you like name them. Who are the ones that tends to happen with?
Well, one of the greatest gifts, and it was so silly. I had a vet call me, a brand new vet, after I had my dog's teeth cleaned to check on the dog. And I was thinking to myself, who does that, right? I mean, who,
That's
I,
sweet.
I just, and it's so easy to stand out because it's a place in the ground game where nobody's looking.
Exactly right. I love the way you put that. And so, just to make this really tangible and why this is really, really close to my heart these days is because I've been hearing it, and I'm sure you've been hearing it, Eddie, which is the last couple of years, everyone has been talking about how digital ads, Facebook ads, Google pay-per-click, it's not landing the same, right? The
Mm-mm.
budget dollars are not going nearly as far as they used to, and it's a losing game. So you and I were talking about this, but I'll throw a couple of these kind of data points out for anyone who's listening. When we're looking at the data, and this is really, really well-backed market research, you guys, that we're sharing with you. It talks about, something like Google Ads pay-per-click. One of the ways that marketers or, your digital marketing company is measuring your ad spend is they're saying, for every dollar on average for most local service businesses, for every dollar that you're putting into Google pay-per-click, you're probably getting about $2 back in revenue. And so they call that like a 2 to 1 ROAS. So every dollar that you put in, you get about $2 back, which is only leaving you with that $1 to actually produce the service call, right? And we know for most of our businesses, if you're running anywhere close to a 50% gross profit margin, that means that it's just you're almost breaking even out of the gate. There's no profit, there's no overhead to be covered from that. And Facebook isn't much better. But when we compare those numbers to the type of impact that you get from referrals or that you get from like these little gifting campaigns and things that have started to become more widely adopted in certain industries, one of the data points we found was that 82% of people who received a gift as part of their service experience said that it created a really positive impression of the brand. And there was another really great data point talking about how I think it was over 65% of people who received some kind of gift as part of their service experience referred at least one customer in the following 6-month period, which is a really huge amount of ROI that really builds
Yep.
and grows over time if this is a systemic part of how you approach doing business with the people around you.
Absolutely. And I like to just tell people to multiply it, right? If we know the bid markets go up and get real expensive when everybody's searching for work, especially if it's seasonal, and then the bid markets go down when you have tons of work, and so they generally work against you, and that's why a ground game is such a big deal.
Yeah. So this feels like a good opportunity. I'd love to I think one of the reasons why I like the idea of gifts so much is because there's a lot of room for creativity and like personalization and how you
Mhm.
show up in your relationship with customers. So I went out and I surveyed a bunch of folks from our House Call Pro community, from the Lady Pros group. I've got some really great examples of how this is showing up in pro businesses that I'd love to share. And actually, the first one, I had a chance to connect with Coach Chris Olson from Northwest Moss Removal earlier this week. Coach Chris wasn't able to join us live, but he and I did talk for about 10 minutes on a specific way that he's been leveraging these types of personal relationship building gifts in his businesses for the last decade. So I would love to actually take a quick minute. We'll probably go ahead and mute each of ourselves, Eddie, and I'm going to share a video with everyone. I'm going to share sound and optimize for video sharing. And we're going to watch a quick clip of this interview with Coach Chris on this exact topic, and then we'll dive in and discuss kind of what he shared with us. Thank you so much for slotting aside a few minutes with me this morning. I know you're off to the races here in just a few.
Yeah, no sweat.
Sweet. Okay. I think we'll probably be good within 10 to 15 on the front end. 10 minutes are high impact have the outline, right? There's a lot of different saturated and really your first person that you've seen win the customer.
So the first thing that comes
Guys,
to
gotta
mind
get Coach
is
Chris.
I don't do this anymore, but for many years when I was general contracting, I struggled with the idea of what to get clients after a job was completed. Because when we were doing general contracting every day, our average job size was anywhere from 30 to 60 or 70,000. And there was lots of room for us to build into the cost of the job for some sort of strategic gift that both just made the clients happy, made us memorable in their mind. And I also wanted to figure out a way to stay top of mind without giving somebody a branded gift. Because all of us love branded gifts. Like I know that like I wear House Call Pro t-shirts and House Call Pro hats and have a House Call Pro backpack. I love that stuff. But I think a lot of clients are so oversaturated with getting these like a lot of times cheap and overly branded gifts. And a lot of times I think they end up in a closet or a trash can and they never get used. So I wanted to figure out a way to give a gift to clients at the end of a project that simultaneously was something they would say, wow, this is awesome, and would actually keep us top of mind. So I talked to a lot of other folks in the industry, and what we ended up doing was I found a local artist, craftsman type person, found them at a craft bazaar around the holidays, actually, and they made custom wood, like cutting boards and kitchen implements. And because we built a lot of decks and outdoor spaces, what I started buying clients was I would get a really nice custom wood cutting board, either like hardwood or slab or something like that. And I would have the name of the family, like the Olson family, Knox family, like engraved on the front of the cutting board. So it was branded, but for them, not for us. But the sneaky part is that we would actually put our logo and our name and a little note saying, thank you for hiring us for your project on the back of the cutting board. And it's funny because the cutting board we bought, it was very obvious which was the top and which was the bottom because it had little feet on all four corners that held it up off the table. So they would never see our logo until they used the cutting board and then brought it into the kitchen to like say wash it at the end of the day. and they'd flip it over to rinse it off or wash it, and they would see our logo on the back. So it was this weird, sneaky way of like giving them this beautiful branded gift with their family name on it that they would use and love, because nobody's going to throw a $200 cutting board that has their name on it in the trash can or stick it in the closet. But on the back, whenever they would use it and take it out and wash it, they would see our company name on the back. And it was funny because I actually had multiple clients that were referred to us, and they would say they had seen that cutting board like at a party or a family get together or something like that. And it wasn't even necessarily that that client referred us, it's that they saw it, asked about it, and they would say, "Oh yeah, that's the company that built our deck or built our outdoor kitchen." And they would get to talking about it and then end up referring us. So
Such a great
it was a really cool thing where it was kind of like a little bit sneaky, but it worked really well because we knew that it was something they weren't going to get rid of.
Such a great example with several different notes that I want to hit. Okay, Chris was really patient with me. I actually paused really quickly so I could go run and grab a visual example for this. So I think that my Zoom is mirrored right now, so you probably can't see this super well, but when you first told me this, Chris, I loved this example for so many reasons, and one of which is because my husband and I have always both been really into the same kind of like, just gifts as being a really great way to build
Mhm.
relationships with people in our network. So years ago, one of the things that we did was buy a really nice laser engraving machine so that we could make gifts exactly like you just described for your
Love
clients.
it.
It's something that we love to do with people that we do business with, friends of ours. And so just to kind of add a visual to what you were saying, and there were a couple things that you hit on that I want to really dig into, which this was a version, like a test board that we did. This was like a $20 cutting board from Costco, right? This is like a
Mhm.
charcuterie board. So this is not an expensive thing, right? For most people that want to do it. And this was like our family logo, our family crest. It's probably mirrored for you, but it says like House of Knox, chaos and merriment awaits. And I loved your call out of personalize the front for the family because
Mhm.
that's that level of intentionality and relationship building that makes it really feel truly personal and makes it feel really special. And then keeping that very subtle call out to your brand on the back is something that's like with thanks from Northwest Moss Removal, right? Just
Yep.
something that keeps you top of mind, but it's subtle and elegant. And so it feels much more like a relationship gift between friends. One of the other things that I love about your cutting board example that's way leaps and above something like basic swag is this idea of like leavability and people keeping it long term.
Mhm.
Because, like you said, something so beautiful like that and something so useful, the utility of it, the
Mhm.
usability factor plays a huge role in the likelihood that your brand and then the thought of that relationship and that story is going to stick around long term. So,
Mhm.
in terms of ROI, right, this is something that I think is overlooked a lot by businesses because it's a little bit fuzzier and we might not be thinking about tracking it in the budget and our marketing the same way that we're thinking about something like Facebook ads or Google ads. From your take, what would you say you were spending on each one of these gifts and what's the ROI that your business saw maybe immediately and then even over time with this type of strategy?
Yeah, well, so I want to start off by saying that I think a lot of people severely underestimate the power of relationship marketing when it comes to ROI. Because, I mean, everybody's heard the expression, the best client is one that you already have. And in my opinion, anything that you can do to get repeat business and repeat clients, not only is that client more likely to pay your desired price, work with you in a way that you enjoy working with, and on top of that, just be easier to work with and easier to manage and easier to interact with. But they're also a lower cost to acquire and a lower cost to complete the service because you already know them, you've already worked with them, you know the ins and outs. You're less likely to cause frustration to them because you already know what they want. And on top of that, it's a lead and a client and a customer that you already have. So I think that when you look at the cost, like there's a lot of companies when I was general contracting that were more than happy to pay 80, 90, 100, 150, $200 per lead when they're talking about marketing because a $200 lead is not that expensive when your average ticket is 30, 50, 80, $100,000. But the problem is you have to look at is how many leads do you actually have to acquire to sell a job that size? And I know for us it was like 1 in 6, 1 in 7, 1 in 8. So you're talking about a $500 to $1,000 marketing cost to get that client that actually books a service with you. So if I can do our cutting boards that we were doing for a while, they cost about $150. And that was the cost of the board, the cost of the engraving, and then we paid a couple of dollars to have it delivered to our shop so we didn't have to send somebody to pick it up. But that $150, if that encourages even one repeat business or repeat referral or a new referral, it's not only paid for itself, it's almost 5, 8, 10 times the return that that cutting board cost. And I would also personally, this is a little side note, I would rather give that $200 to the local guy that makes cutting boards in my town than Google. So
Totally.
in my opinion, if I can generate business through local networking and things like that, or through being top of mind, or through encouraging referrals, I will always do that over a cutting board, or over giving it to Google. A cutting board or a gift is just so far and above something that I think is better for most.
I'll
You're
stop that
muted.
there. Yeah, thank you, Eddie. There was actually a little bit of a longer interview with Chris that I don't think we have time to fully go into today, but so I love the comparison and contrast there. So you brought up some really great examples of the shoulder gifts, those things that, are branded, are small, but also you were very intentional about that usability, keep it around factor, right? It's not just something that people are going to throw out because it's useful for them. And then Chris is talking about, even deeper on another element of the strategy, which is making it really personal and sincere to, your specific client. Any quick feedback or sound bites on those two approaches, Eddie?
Well, it's a perfect example, right? He was thoughtful, intentional, and it was scaled to the value of the job. And he's trying to build relationship and rewarding somebody for that relationship. And loyalty is misunderstood. Your connection with the owner personally creates comfort and trust, and that manifests into loyalty. Don't do a loyalty program, do a comfort and trust program that builds relationships, and then the outcome, right? I think what people overlook in gifting too is their own people who work with them. As soon as you hire somebody, we know that them showing on the first day isn't a guarantee anymore. It's not a handshake and I'll be there on Monday. And gifting even new hires with boy, those great Yeti and RTIC vacuum mugs that you can't throw one of those out, right? That really
Mhm.
celebrates. It's a celebration of relationship in a way that, and I think you said it best, is things that you don't want thrown away, things that are meaningful.
Yeah, there were some really great examples shared in the Lady Pros group as well. There are actually quite a few great comments and feedback across a few of the posts I made in some of our Housefly Pro communities. But I wanted to highlight a couple of these because I thought that they were really exemplary in terms of the effortfulness and thoughtfulness and really being present in the community with your customers and people that you do business with. So these were some comments that came in from the Lady Pros community, and the question that I asked was, what's the most effective client or referral gift that you give or that you've ever received? So a few of the ladies chimed in. Deborah was talking about how they make homemade barbecue sauce for their clients, which is a really, really amazing high impact thing. So they take the time, they have the list, they go out and they hand deliver these. Gretchen was talking about hand delivered poinsettias around the holidays, which is really unique. And that hand delivery is a really key element of this, where they get to go out and they get that FaceTime and they get to see and talk with their customers. And then she was talking about as well, like they double down on this. They take photos of it, they post it on social media. So this is very, it's a wonderful time to connect with clients and it's really visible. Coach Eram chimed in. Coach Eram knocks this out of the park too. So she talks about how her whole family creates chili kits, cake balls, pralines, Christmas cookie recipes, and they assemble them as kits and then they go out and deliver those to their customers. Melody Edwards had a really beautiful one as well, which was pretty unique because it wasn't a specific gift. But she mentions that she liked to do things like she invited her customers for a customer appreciation coffee social, trying to get them to come out to a coffee house and spend some time. And in order to motivate them to come show up, she told them that she would donate $1,000 to local nonprofits. And if they showed up live for the coffee social, she would split that donation and, put it towards the charity or the nonprofit of their choice, which she said was a really incredible thing that her clients really loved. And she got to share with them, like kind of like we were talking about in our last Money Mastery episode, sharing something important and close to the heart of her clients and customers and getting to kind of give a gift in that direction. Dawn talked about jars of local honey made in Oklahoma or made in your local area gift boxes. And then again, like homemade sour cream coffee cakes. So just some really, really beautiful, consistent tributes that people love doing. They do them year after year, that I thought were really great examples to highlight. So then I think to tie it all back in, they're beautiful, they're thoughtful. These are really great things that I think warm the heart, but these are also very strategically sound. There's incredible ROI on these. And so, like, to bring it back to the numbers again, we talk about when you have these kinds of moments of delight in your customer relationships, the referral power, the influencer power just ratchets up. And we were looking at a couple of the data points, like referral leads convert 30% better than any other lead that you get. And you had a really good quote when we were talking about this earlier, Eddie, about why referrals are also really important. Do you remember what it was?
Yeah, well, the greatest thing about referrals, it's not whether or not you're trustworthy, it's not whether or not you're good, because somebody's given you third party credibility already. And so it never is about price. There's a relationship that starts not out of fear. And I think that's probably the best part about it.
Yeah, I thought that was really, really powerful when you shared that. Just the idea that when you show up as a referral for somebody, they're not making that decision on price anymore. You've already gotten past the number one objection that people struggle with, and because that's the case, the numbers show us that referrals have a 16% higher lifetime value as customers overall as well. And people who were referred to you tend to also bring you more referrals. So it's a building wave that grows over time.
Absolutely. And when somebody puts a referral out for you, they really have skin in the game because they're putting their reputation on the line to give you a referral. And it's that's a really key point is that I think your numbers are really understated. I think, quite frankly, when you're a referral, we did a huge piece of quantitative research talking. We spoke to 1,000 people that had done work in the last year, and we talked to them a lot about how they made the decision. And it so people just don't have any understanding of who's good at the work. It's the same with even in the medical space, the doctors that have the lowest percentage of lifetime malpractice suits are the ones that have the very best behavior bedside. It's because no one knows if somebody was good with a knife, right? And so what you really want to do is think about you've had a great experience, you've had dignity and respect in all ways, and now what you really want them to do is to remember your name. Because what we found in that big piece of research was that the huge majority of people started a job, and the first thing they did was they asked a neighbor, do you have a plumber you trust? Do you have a builder you trust? Do you have and when the answer is no, then they go out on their search for it. And they're so used to being burned that the first part of that whole interaction is just try to assess whether or not the person they're talking with is really trustworthy and really worthy of the risk. Um, so it's a fascinating sort of dynamic.
It really is. And so we've talked a lot about, the importance of these relationship pieces with our potential customers or with our past customers. But when in the realm of referrals, we get referrals from our current customer base, but I think and especially where the idea of strategic gifting really shines is in the second group of people that tend to refer us, which I think you referred to as shoulder trades, which are these like complementary business owners, these influencers, right, that are in front of the same people that we do business with all the time. And like you said, you want them to remember your name. And so part of why I think that, gifting in particular and approaching these relationships with an open hand and reciprocity, gifting fits really nicely into that because we don't always have the same opportunities to cultivate those relationships that we do with our customer interactions.
Mhm.
So when it comes to cultivating this influencer network that you want, singing the praises of your business, how do you think about approaching that when it comes to strategic referral partners?
I think of it kind of in two ways. And so we've been talking about doing business with people and building a relationship where they refer you, right? That's kind of where we've come from in this conversation. Now, when you say, I'm going to be really strategic about getting referral partners, there's probably two areas. There's one area is places of high influence. HOAs come to mind. Um, that's kind of one category. And then the other category of referrals is shoulder trades. And so if I'm a gutter guy and that's what we do custom gutters and repair of gutters, knowing the power washers and soft washers in your network or in your market, it's really a great idea. And the way to approach them is to say, hey, I'm trying to find people to refer people to in the power washing and soft washing business because I'm up on the gutters and I often see houses that really need it. And when I have a relationship, they'll ask me for referrals. And so I go out to interview that shoulder trade with the intent of sending them leads. And what's really unusual, what happens, it's the law of reciprocity. And then after I ask a lot of questions about their business, I've already seen your ratings, you're really great. That's why I called you. Then the natural thing for them to say is, well, what do you do? And well, we do gutters and we specialize in this kind of work. And it's relationship based where I have intent to refer you as a shoulder business, and it happens naturally for them to reciprocate. And what's really important about any of these strategic alliances, whether it be kind of in the HOA group or in the shoulder um, trade group, is that it's the intentionality in it is that you keep following up with them.
Mm.
Okay. You find out from the HOA, when do you guys meet? Uh, just as a group of the leaders in the HOA, I'd love to bring, if it's in the evening, I'd love to bring a dessert, or I would love to do this, or and it's trying to add some sugar adds huge value. Uh,
Yes.
and it's those things like who does that, right? And
Mhm.
and and it's after you've built the relationship. I don't think you should show up in the first round. I think in the first round that we specialize in these kind of townhomes, and this is what we do in a lot of townhome complexes. Once we're there and we have somebody on site, it really we can pass along that savings to your homeowners, and we do a lot of counter resurfacing, and I've done it for several people in here. I just want to introduce myself and tell you who we are. That's the relationship part. But then the follow up part with bringing something, if they're meeting on Saturday morning, a bag of bagels, just something to really have them go, wow, that was really, really thoughtful.
Yeah, absolutely. The way that I think about this is very similar to if you're invited to a friend's house or you're invited to a friend's place of business for the first time, what's one of the most common things that we do? Like you bring a host gift. You know what I mean? Like
You
you
said,
come up bringing something, you don't ever bring the dish back empty. You always put something in that dish before you return it after the dinner party. And it's those types of thoughtfulness and reciprocity that keeps relationships strong and thriving. And so I like that you mentioned about with referral partners, and at any time that someone refers you, whether it's a customer referring you to another customer, but especially if it's a professional of some type that's referring you, they have a unique set of concerns and pain points, right? And you said it best when you said that, they're concerned about you showing up well with whoever they've put their reputation on the line with to make that referral. So much of cultivating this relationship is being good at, letting them know how you're going to take that referral seriously and how you're going to show up great for their customers and how you're going to make them look good and continue to progress the trust and influence that they have with the people in the community.
yeah, and I'm a freak advocate for BNI. If you've ever participated in BNI, you'll know that it is a whole course and has coursework on how to do this well. And BNI groups, when you have other people in the trades, you often get together and you put together a flyer of Omaha's most trusted, uh, home service businesses. And you're giving them out at houses and they're giving them out at houses. And it really becomes structured referrals. I can't say enough about, I hear people say, well, BNI costs $1,000. It does, but you'll more than make that off of referrals and the work that you do with your people in your group. Often do some specials with them, but they really teach you the science of exactly what we're talking about.
Yep, that's such a good point. So we had talked through a few very tactical ways to think about making this a system and making this something that you do consistently. So I wanted to just riff with you for a second, Eddie, on a couple of these different themes of the ways that each of you that are listening can start thinking about bringing this into the relationships that you have, or starting to cultivate more relationships with local referral partners. So, the first one, these little thank you gifts when somebody sends you a client or sends you a referral. Part of that interview with Coach Chris that we didn't get to, but Coach Chris was talking about now that he's in a lower average ticket market. He can't, it doesn't fit into his business model now to have $150 cutting board for every single client gift. But what he loves to do is anytime that clients are referring him, he keeps track of that and he's very consistent about sending gift cards to those clients that are referring him consistently. And you and I talked before, Eddie, that there's a big difference between something like sending gift cards versus giving someone a coupon or giving someone a discount. So tell me a little bit about how you think about that, because I think there's a lot of people that are like, well, I'm giving people a discount or I'm giving them something for free. And how does that land differently psychologically than if we're actually presenting something as a gift?
I will. I'm going to tag onto something you said about handwritten notes and dropping it by and saying to somebody and looking in their eyes, "Thank you so much for that," and really telling them what happened on the job and share what they were delighted about and build that they a person gets big social capital out of referring somebody who's really good who wows them. And
Mm,
that will even cause an interaction between the person who referred in that handwritten note. So I wanted to
yeah.
absolutely talk about that. The second part of what you were saying, if you could tell me again, I was so caught up on the handwritten note.
No, that's great. And to your note about the handwritten note, right? Close that loop. Somebody referred you, you started talking to that customer, do them the courtesy of going back to that partner who's referring you and close the loop to let them know how that went. There's just so much, psychological safety and reinforcement that happens there. But
Absolutely.
the second part that I was asking you about, Eddie, is, Coach Chris Olson mentioning that for those relationships, for his, great referral partners, he sends gift cards. And you and I were talking about how different sending a $25 gift card or a $75 gift of some kind is, how differently that lands and is received compared to $100 off or a 20% discount
Oh,
or
okay. Yes.
so you tell
The
me,
the
how do you think about the
the
differences
no,
on those?
the notion of giving a gift card to your service. I had uh, when I was with Ace, we had an owner who in October they hand lettered envelopes to every single one of their customers, and then they sent them a card. And it wasn't a dollars off their service; it was a gift certificate for their services, and it said, "On any job you have, this you can apply this. It doesn't apply to it applies to labor, of course, all the small print, but essentially they gave gift certificates away and thanked them for their business. And gift certificates, and it's been quantified, they redeem at triple the rate than coupons do because it's literally something of value, and you can't. I mean, you can't throw it away because it says this redeem this, and I think to do that on your own service is a fantastic way to say thank you, especially if of a recurring service. And it just really builds relationship. And I'm a huge advocate of not sending things. I'm a huge advocate of texting them and saying, I'm going to stop by tonight. I've got something for you. And even if they're not home for to be delivered and left on the porch with some warning, I think it's just it builds the big R, builds relationship.
Absolutely. So I think very well said. You know, those of you who are thinking about how you're already doing some of these types of discounts or some of these coupons, how easy is it for you to just reposition that a little bit as a gift and think about that messaging? It seems so small, but it makes a huge difference.
It's
And I
huge.
think so. I think that's really, really high impact for things that we're already doing. And also, yes, and I really love to encourage people to think about those things that stand out and are different. Because when we think about interacting with and building a relationship with customers and referral partners, what's the easiest thing for any business to give? It's some type of gift certificate or coupon or dollars off of the service that they provide. So, yes, there's value to that, and definitely positioning it as a gift is the best way to position it. But in terms of something that's stand out or really creating delight for your customers, that's where I think all of these other examples of grandma's sour cream coffee cake recipe and the homemade barbecue sauce and the hand delivered poinsettias on your porch, that's where we really elevate the note of this relationship building.
And I think what a lot of people think is that it's a one and done, that I'm going to show up, I'm going to introduce myself, and then I might, and I hope for a referral rather than really understanding it. It's very much like a garden, right? You got to till it, you got to plant it, you got to cultivate it, you got to give it fertilizer to get a crop. And so going back on quarterly relationship gifts, a huge thing that you keep coming back to them till they know your name, right? When you're trying to build these milestone gifts where, a partner hits a big month or wins an award or opens a new office. I just have the list of people that you're trying to develop and have intention to keep touching and keep building that relationship because trust is built by consistent behaviors over time.
Yeah, I think that's smart, really smart feedback, which is, get that list, get those addresses, and just try to make an intentional habit of going back to it periodically with slightly different little things, but just exercising a lot of intention. And the the note that I want to really highlight with you guys here, and I think we've done a pretty good job of this, but it's not about the gift, right? It's about what the gift represents. It's the thought that counts, right? And so that's what we're conveying, and that's what we're designing when we're being really thoughtful about doing this systemically within our businesses, which is that, it's not about the specific item, but what it's conveying and signaling to the people in your network.
Yeah, and it says you're important to me, you matter to me, and there's precious little of that today. I was in a panel in January in Austin at the House Call Pro sort of annual deal. I don't know what it was called. And they said, what do you think the big marketing strategy is for 2025? And I said handwriting. I think handwriting and and postcards that they don't have to open anything from the mailbox to the trash can, which is where everybody goes. You have a chance. And I think this is the same thing. It's the surprise. It's like, wow, they were thinking about me.
Yeah, because most people aren't doing it. So
Yep.
as we wrap up today, I just want to hit the numbers with you guys one more time because this is, after all, money mastery. So let's talk turkey about why we're talking about gifts specifically as part of this relationship and referral-based marketing. So let's draw the comparison in terms of real ROI. So like you said, Eddie, these are the quantified metrics. This is where all of the marketing research is showing us. And I pulled all of this data focusing on home service businesses and over the last 2 years. So this is comparing the performance of things like social media ads, Google paid search with this relationship marketing like direct mail and gifts to your customers. So when we're talking about this, and actually you said something earlier today, Eddie, that made me dig a little deeper into this. So I want to clarify. When marketing companies and marketing case studies and research are talking about ROI, the percentage of ROI that they quote can be a little bit confusing. So, for example, the data that we're dealing with is showing us that social media ads and Facebook, they have about a 21% ROI. And I think when people look at that, they might be thinking, oh, 21% profitability is great, but that's not what it's measuring. What it's talking about, that 21% ROI that the marketing industry is telling you is it's basically what's left after it's your gross profit minus your ads cost. So it's 21 cents that's left for you to cover all of your overhead and maybe squeeze out some profit, right? So just to say that again, if you for every dollar for every dollar that you spend in Facebook ads, right, social media ads, you get about 21 cents out on average to cover all of your overhead and operating expenses and maybe squeeze out some profit. It's a little bit better for Google, but for paid search, for local service ads. So for paid search, that number is 38 cents. So for every dollar you put into it, after you're done producing any projects you get out of it, you've got about 38 cents left to cover all of your overhead and maybe squeeze out a little bit of profit. Any guesses what that number looks like for gifts to your customer list or direct mail, Eddie?
I don't know the stat.
So for Facebook, it's 21 cents. For paid search, it's 38 cents. For direct mail cut and gifts to customers, that number is $1.61. So it's a huge jump up. So it's 161% ROI is what they've measured when it comes to using gifting and handwritten
Mm.
notes and those types of connection points with your customer list.
Yeah, it just you have to figure out a way to get beyond paid leads. You can't run a profitable business buying it. And that's why the ground game has such huge return, but it has to be scheduled. If it's not scheduled, if it's not a part of your week, everything that's urgent will overcome it. If I'm going to say I'm going to do this sometime, it's that thing where you say, okay, over the week, I'm going to spend 5 hours or 4 hours on this. And you block that off where you can't get pulled away and you're going to go do that. It's in that consistency that it pays. And there's so many people that try it one and done and they say it doesn't work for me. And it's just absolutely not true. It's
Yeah.
absolutely not true. And that's why I come back to BNI again. You really start to see the power of that multiplier. A real pro in BNI told me, a pro at BNI, a pro in BNI, so it's pro squared, uh, said said, you know your BNI is working really well when you get people calling you who you don't know.
Mhm.
When it's not just the people in your group that are doing work with you, but literally, and that comes about by cultivating those relationships. It's the exact same thing.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up today, I loved what you just said, Eddie, about, it can't be the kind of thing that you think one and done. You try it once and they're
Yeah.
like, oh, it didn't work for me. I always love to leave people with at least like one very actionable takeaway, maybe something that they can do this week that's going to get them started in the right direction. Any recommendations for what that actionable takeaway for this group listening might be?
I think what you do is you sit down in a quiet place for 20 minutes and think about who your strategic shoulder businesses are and who your sort of the HOA kind of bigger kind of places that you can go and develop relationships with. And you think about those and you say, I'm going to spend this amount of time, and you schedule it. And you schedule it, it would never be on a Monday. I mean, come on. But you schedule it every week and you do it, and you will start to see it pay back.
Okay, I love that. So here's your actionable takeaway, guys. Start now, block 20 minutes a week. I would say put that calendar block in, and for the first week, deep thought, right? Deep reflection. Who are these people? A great place to look at that, or who else is in front of your potential client base the most? Where are you currently getting referrals from organically? Who are the people that are your promoters, and just make more of those. Get that list together. And then every week for 20 minutes, handwrite a couple of cards, right? It doesn't have to be all or nothing, I think is the important part for people to remember. If you get one or two of these out a week, it's going to build on itself and you're going to be encouraged to keep doing it because of the traction that you're
Now,
going to be
now you're
seeing.
setting a low bar. In 20 minutes, you can do more than one or two. Now, come on. I,
You're
I
right, Eddie.
really,
How fast can we write? This is
I
my millennial
really,
handwriting.
I really want you to do the inch by inch. It's a cinch. And if you're set up and it's a part of your week every week, I promise you can do more than one or two. And I promise it'll pay back. And you can find me at House Pro and tell me it didn't, uh, because I'm at the deal every January. But it does work, but it only works if you work it, right? A fitness membership never works if you sign up and never go. It's we all know this. It's the exact same thing.
Yes. Yep, the system works if you work it. I love that. And you're right. So you guys, Eddie is betraying the psychology here, which is you just have to tell yourself you're gonna write one or two of them. But by the time you sit down and you write two of them, you're gonna get 10 of them knocked out.
If anybody sat through this webinar, they have intention to grow the ground game. And so to Lynette and Thomas, we're going to grow this ground game. Okay. And it will absolutely work.
Love it. Thank you, Eddie, so much for the time today. What a great
Oh,
topic. Thanks for sharing your wisdom.
oh, it's been my pleasure. I say this to everybody in every single thing I do. Anybody can reach out to me. It's not about, I'm going to bill it or charge it. I want to help people realize the potential. And what I see across my coaching is that people don't know how powerful they are until they systematically go after it and really blow this business up and create a hiring problem for yourself, right? Get so much sales growth. Let's have another problem that we'll work on. But right now, you can be a giant among midgets who don't do this today.
Love it. Eddie, thank you for the time today.
Oh, you bet.
Bye, you guys.